conflict in special education between schools and parents, it's just gonna happen sometimes. But I've got 3 unnecessary IEP battles that we just need to stop right now. Welcome to the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Witcher, and I've been in the field for over 25 years professionally in special education. I'm also a special needs sibling. My brother is 46 with Down syndrome, which means that I have been in the disability community pretty much my entire life. And conflict, battles between school and home, it's just part of special education, right? But we wish it wasn't. We wish that we could just move on. Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just do what's best for a child? Can't we all just figure this out? Well, it's not quite that simple, right? But we can start breaking down different concepts that have caused battles in the past and choose not to make this a battle in the future. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Based on where our world is right now and where our world is going, it is important for us to get out of the old school habits. I talk about this all the time inside of our Master IEP Coach community. We talk about building IEPs for the 1980s has got to stop. We've got to upgrade special education to where we are now, and we have to look to the future. So let's go ahead and get started on these 3 IEP battles that are absolutely unnecessary. The first one is inflexible IEP goals, meaning that, there's this battle that happens over IEP goals because there's stubbornness. And this could be stubbornness on the parent side or stubbornness on the staff side, but there becomes a stubbornness of this has to be the IEP goal. This should not be a battle. The bottom line is that the parent is going to be the only consistent person in a child's education throughout their entire educational career, right? So parents, you need to speak up about what IEP goals are most important. And staff, I'm going to encourage you to listen because you're not the one who's going to be working with this child long term. Sure, you might have a student for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, but you're not going to have them in elementary school and in high school, most likely, right? So it's important for parents to have a big input on what is the priority of the IEP goals. However, that being said, teachers are experts, therapists are experts too. So you guys know what goals could be very, very important too. So I understand that there's this kind of fight inside of you of like, no, I need my child to learn this, or no, I need the student to learn this. It's so very important. But not being flexible and really understanding the other person's point of view of why this is or is not important is not acceptable anymore. We've got to collaborate and look at this. So let me give you a couple of examples. The first one is if you are in disagreement of an IEP goal, put a shorter timeline on it. I know it feels like a big commitment to say we're going to do this for the entire next year, but there's nothing that says that you cannot shorten that timeline and try something out for 30, 60, or 90 days. Let's get beyond the argument and get to moving an action forward outside of the argument, which might mean making a compromise and saying, sure, let's try this for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. Get that put into the IEP that you're going to try something for a while. Maybe you're having a disagreement about an IEP goal of what's important and what's not important. Should we do this? Should we not do that? And you need to take some data on that before you even write the goal. So a lot of times we're having arguments over goals and you don't even have the right data yet to write the goal. We're talking about something that may or may not need to happen. So it's important for you when you're looking at IEP goals. I'm going to give you another example here, a very, very specific example. I talk about this one all the time. My goodness, we do not use pennies at the grocery store anymore or at Target or wherever that you are shopping. We don't use pennies, right? So why are we making our entire financial literacy in special education starting with counting pennies? Now, I understand the concept of, budgeting and money and financials, that's all very important. I 100% agree with that. But our money management does not depend on us being able to count pennies. Is one-to-one correspondence, that concept, is that important? Absolutely it is. But again, our financial management does not depend on counting pennies. IEP goals get stuck on counting pennies year after year after year. And a lot of times when I'm coaching a parent, I say, okay, you need to go into this IEP meeting and they've already prepped the team through a letter because we always put things in writing first because we don't want any surprises at the meeting. But a lot of times there's still this battle that's happening. So the parent has to be ready to have the conversation about why pennies as financial literacy is not good for their child. And so I say, listen, you need to talk about like, how do you go to the store? And this is how you shop. And that's is how my child's going to shop. And in the future, how many places are cashless right now? I know that, I've recently moved to Florida. I get emails all the time. Busch Gardens is now cashless. Adventure Island is now cashless. They don't take cash. Okay, so we have to upgrade IEPs. We have to have these conversations about what is happening right now in the world and is this important? So let's not have the battle over, well, the curriculum says we have to do pennies first. No, an IEP says that we prepare a child for further education, employment, and independent living, which means that we need to look forward. We need to look outside the curriculum and we need to decide what's going to be most important. So let's be more flexible with our IEP goals, not feel like we are mandated to do what's only in the curriculum. And let's make sure that we are, when I say look beyond the curriculum, I don't mean that we're going to be making all our own decisions and not using a research-based curriculum and something that's been proven and all that. No, I still want really smart methods to be used, but choosing what is important and what comes first can't always be determined by a curriculum that was written by somebody that doesn't know the child that we're talking about at the table. So this is an unnecessary battle. Let's not fight over IEP goals. Let's make compromises. Let's have conversations. And then let's make sure that we are finding that common ground. So it's okay to compromise sometimes. That, why are we always feeling like, compromising is a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. So, let's compromise and say, you know what? Financial literacy is really important. Learning pennies, not so much. So the compromise is, and what is that compromise? You have the conversation. Okay. And then you're going to come together and connect on what is most important for the child. All right. So that's the first one. The second one, can we please stop fighting over assistive technology and if it's important or not? See, the definition of assistive technology is not just having technology for children who are non-speakers and we need to have this big device or a complicated program to help for communication. That's an old school version of what assistive technology is. Assistive technology can be high tech, it can be low tech. It can be all different things. Guess what? All students are using assistive technology. Every one of them using assistive technology. There's a box on your IEP that says, does this child need assistive technology? I haven't found a student yet that doesn't need it. Now, if you know of somebody, please feel free. Email me, tell me, send me a message. Tell me what child's not using some version of assistive technology as it is stated by the law. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't teach the law. I can't practice law, but I can tell you where to look. So I'm going to go ahead and put the section of IDEA law that talks about assistive technology. I'll make sure that it's quoted exactly. I'll pull it exactly from the law. I'll have it right there. Bottom line is it's high tech, it's low tech, and things that are adapting the environment so a child can access their education. And this assistive technology is absolutely happening for every child. This should not be an argument of, oh, do we need an assistive technology evaluation? Most likely, yes. Now, I'm not saying that every child has to go through a full comprehensive assistive tech evaluation. I'm saying every child that I know of, that I've seen, they're using assistive technology. Do they need to go through a full evaluation? Maybe or maybe not. But I can tell you, you personally, you're doing an assistive technology evaluation for yourself all the time. You're figuring out which phone is going to be best for me, which app is going to be best for me, which streaming service do I want in my house. What, Alexa or Google Home or Ring doorbell, what are all these things that are going to make your life easier and more accessible and safer? You're doing your own evaluation of technology all the time. The same thing is happening for our students. The same thing, and this needs to be put in the IEP. In my opinion, again, go ahead. I welcome the conversation. I really do. Tell me a student that's not using some version of assistive technology. And so we need to pay attention to this section and stop arguing of like, do we need an assistive technology evaluation? Like, because we don't think they're using any of it. That's not true from either side. And I've heard it from both. I'm not saying that even one side says it more than the other. I'm saying parents is like, I don't think my child needs assistive technology, because the misconception that's out there about what assistive technology is stopping them from, learning kind of what is possible when it comes to assistive technology. And then I hear from the school side too, because they think, old school kind of way of like, well, we do assistive technology, then we're going to be investing, $10,000 into a device for this child. No, that's not what we're talking about majority of the time. So that's an unnecessary IEP battle. The third one, and I'll actually put a link here to the last episode, it was a couple episodes ago, that I talked about ESY is not just for a regression. Like, we need to stop fighting over ESY and in the way where it said ESY is just for regression. I'm going to bring this up a lot because this is something that we need to talk about year round. Extended school year is not just for summer. It can happen at any time. It's any services that are provided outside of the standard school day. And it's not just for a regression. And I went into detail about that in another episode. Again, I'll put that link below to make sure that you have that. But we need to stop arguing over, did the child regress enough to have ESY services, because that's not the conversation. The conversation should be, what does the child need for an appropriate education, and does that include ESY, which would be any instruction during the school year or during the summer that's beyond the standard school day. ESY is not a standard cookie cutter program, or at least it shouldn't be. So, talking about, well, the child doesn't qualify and this is really what ESY is for our district, or a parent thinking like our only version for ESY is that we can go for 6 weeks, 4 days a week from 8 to 12, or whatever that standard program is. This should not be the limiting discussion of ESY or no ESY. ESY needs to be a bigger discussion. We need to stop fighting over one point of ESY is just for regression, because that's a false point, and we need to go beyond in that conversation. So I hope that as you look at these three things, IEP goals, and how we need to stop being so kind of hardcore. This is the goal. This is what the curriculum says. This is how it's supposed to be, or this is how it's always been done. Or parents, where you're saying like, my child needs to learn exactly this right now. Like, we need to open up this conversation and realize that there is flexibility inside of IEP goals. And one of the strategies you can use is to make sure that you are shortening timelines if necessary to try IEP goals, and to work towards making sure that we are preparing a child for further education, employment, independent living by being flexible in what we are going to prioritize inside the IEP in that IEP goal area. And then we need to make sure assistive technology, we got this right. Everybody's using assistive technology. You need to expand your knowledge on what assistive technology is and what it can do. Again, I will put the link of what that is exactly according to IDEO law inside of the notes here. And then ESY is not just for regression. We got three things that we could stop fighting. Let's collaborate. Let's have the conversations. Let's make this work. We talk all the time inside of our Master IEP Coach community how to work through these, how to make sure we're getting the best IEP goals for the real world, to make sure that we're preparing for further education, employment, independent living. How are we going to make sure that assistive technology is being implemented to encourage, again, this support of further education, employment, independent living, and making sure that we're implementing our tools, that we're not stuck in this old school thinking of assistive technology and what it is. And then, of course, ESY, making sure that we are providing a full appropriate education and not limiting what ESY is. If you have any questions about that, I'm going to encourage you, go ahead and look below, find the links where maybe you are ready to earn your Master IEP Coach certificate. You want to know all these things, all these strategies. You want templates and outlines and downloads and swipe files, and you want to dig deep and figure out all of these kind of things. That's the Master IEP Coach certificate program. That's where you take in the information and you can start using it for yourself. Or maybe you want to become a Master IEP Coach because you don't just want the tools for yourself. You want the tools so then you can learn them and then you can get paid to help others. You want to start your own independent practice as a Master IEP Coach because you want to be part of the solution at a bigger level outside of your current role at the IEP table. That's the Become a Master IEP Coach. And I will put that information also here below. So do you want to learn everything for yourself, or are you going to learn everything for yourself and you're going to help others? Those are your choices inside of our Master IEP Coach programs, and I cannot wait to see which one you choose. I will see you guys next time on the Special Education Inner Circle podcast.